The Golden State Warriors through 9 games are 3-6, and they currently stand as the 12th seed in the Western Conference, just one spot above the obviously constantly clowned on Los Angeles Lakers. Worst of all, these losses have not come to good teams. They have lost to the Hornets without LaMelo Ball, the Detroit Pistons, and yesterday they lost pretty egregiously to the Orlando Magic. So, what is wrong with the Golden State Warriors? Let's talk about it. So, easily the most significant issue with the Golden State Warriors thus far, especially by comparison to where they were last year, is that their defense has fallen off of a cliff and then some. As of right now, they are currently 25th in defensive rating when they were a top defense last year. And again, they are not having bad defensive games against really good teams. They are giving up these points to bad offensive squads. The Magic are 26th in offensive rating overall. They scored 130 points on the Warriors yesterday. The Pistons, 27th in offense. They scored 128 points. And the Hornets, again without LaMelo Ball, they are the 24th best offense. And the Warriors gave them 120 points, although to give them a little bit of a break, that did include overtime. But either way, giving up 120 plus to 3 of the bottom 10 offenses in the league, 2 of them being bottom 5, it's just downright unacceptable, especially for a team that has the defensive personnel, the defensive reputation, the defensive coaching that they've had for years. The Warriors, when everyone's healthy, have always been a good defensive team, so to see them fall off this hard is really perplexing. And what's most perplexing about it is there's not really too many obvious things to blame. Even the good defenders to the bad defenders have had some level of blame here. Andrew Wiggins looks a step slow by comparison to what he was last year on the defensive end. Draymond Green doesn't seem to be communicating the way that he used to, and also just finds himself in bad positions so often. I'm gonna roll some clips here of him against the Orlando Magic and just the Warriors defense in general, where it's like, what the hell are you doing, guys? Especially this play where Draymond and Wiggins are guarding a not even actual pick and roll between Suggs and Paolo Banchero, and they just give Suggs a wide open 3. It's comically bad, and it just seems like it's a lack of effort ultimately. So cleaning up that end of the floor is really going to be the solution to this team turning things around. However, defense is definitely not the only problem, because they're also currently the 13th best offense in the league, which is not terrible, but for the Warriors standard and for how many offensive weapons they currently have, it's definitely not great. Now, the first and most obvious person to blame for the offense thus far has to be Klay Thompson, because other than yesterday's game against the Orlando Magic, he has looked awful so far. Up until that Magic game, he was shooting sub 30% from 3, and he has a 48% true shooting percentage on the season. It's just unacceptable how bad he's been shooting. And it does not help that he has been taking really difficult and bad shots in the process. I've complained about this with Klay Thompson post-injury before, but it really feels like something happened with his shot selection. Ever since he's come back from being injured, he's taken way more mid-range shots, way more difficult shots, and he still hits them at a respectable clip, but there's many of them that it's like, why are you taking a contested mid-range shot over 2 defenders with 18 seconds left in the shot clock? Shit like that. It's just bad. And like, Klay Thompson's smarter than that. He's played smarter than that before. So I don't know why him post-injury isn't smarter than that. He didn't hit his head. He just tore his Achilles. So I don't know what that's about. His mentality must have changed. Part of it that has been argued in the past is like the shot hierarchy isn't what it used to be. So like he's fighting for his shots more. So when he gets the ball, he's just gonna try and score. Because Klay definitely has that problem where if he gets the ball, he's gonna try and find a way to score before he passes it. He doesn't always go for it, but he's gonna try. Another guy who's been really disappointing, especially after getting a big contract, is Jordan Poole. He has also been been really inefficient, just barely over 40% from the field, just barely over 30% from three. And he's also getting called for carries all the time because his handle requires him to carry, and the league has started cracking down on that more. I don't know what it is about Jordan Poole, but the way he dribbles, it's like, I'm going to carry every 3 seconds. So that has been a problem for him. And speaking of his three-point shooting and Klay Thompson's three-point shooting, removing Steph and Andrew Wiggins, who are shooting the three ball extremely well, as you would expect of Steph, and Wiggins is shooting like 44%. But other than those two, the team as a whole is shooting 31.9% from three. And with the Warriors having the reputation that they do as a three-point shooting team, and them having a 45% three-point attempt rate, if the threes aren't dropping, the Warriors offense is not looking good. And that's really the same principle for every team, but the Warriors, as we all know, have an emphasis on three-point shooting. At least you do have two guys who are shooting the ball very well, and Steph being good still is really the only saving grace they've had this season. Otherwise, they'd probably be 0-9, but you kind of need more than two players on your team capable of hitting an open three. And now let's talk about what is their second biggest problem after the defense, but you could argue these issues are semi-correlated. The Warriors have found success in any of the years that they didn't have Kevin Durant and they were a good team. One of the many factors in their success was bench depth. Last year, obviously, the Warriors won the championship, and they had a lot of guys who were able to contribute at a high level off of the bench, both in the playoffs and in the regular season. But they lost two very key bench pieces in Gary Payton II and Otto Porter Jr. And since those losses have happened, they've been more relying on their young talent, and it's not worked out so far. Other than, again, an inefficient 16 points per game from Jordan Poole off of the bench, you're not really getting any kind of bench scoring whatsoever. The only guy who's actually scoring a respectable amount of points relative to his minutes has been James Wiseman. However, other than finishing in the paint, he really has not been a positive in any other area of basketball. Defensively, he looks lost out there, and he's making poor effort plays. Also has a lot of really, really bad body language, and he is like not really doing much offensively outside of just finishing dunks and alley-oops and putbacks and stuff like that, which is cool, but in terms of just overall offensive capability, there is very little coming off of this bench save for Jordan Poole, who again has been inefficient. But what's been a bigger factor and a more important factor is the defense. Right now, the Warriors starting lineup actually has a positive defensive rating. They are actually a good defensive team when the starters are in. Though Draymond and Wiggins have been a lot worse than you would typically expect them to be, and Klay Thompson has not been the same defender post-injury, overall that lineup has a lot of history together. They have a lot of cohesion, and they're still pretty solid on defense. But as soon as literally it seems like one bench player is in the game, it all falls apart. Let's just put it this way. There are really four pillars in the success of the Golden State Warriors, again, them without Kevin Durant. So for their 2015 title and for their 2022 title, there were four pillars. Steph being great, three-point shooting, not just including Steph, defense, that was really Draymond and in the last championship Wiggins end of things before Andre Iguodala, and then last pillar would be the bench depth and bench production. So as of right now, only one of those four pillars stands, and not sure if you're familiar with how structures work, but if something is held up by four pillars and only one of them is actually there, it's gonna fucking collapse. So the Warriors are in trouble right now, and frankly, I'm more concerned about them than I feel like a lot of other people are, because they're talking about it like, yeah, these are early season struggles, they'll figure it out, and I don't expect them to be this bad from here on out, but right now they're playing like a play-in team at best. And I genuinely feel as though a lot of these problems are going to stick around. The only way that they could really mitigate it, the thing that I would do if I was in their shoes, I would trade at least one of those young players, whether it be Moses Moody, whether it be Jonathan Kuminga, or personally my pick would be James Wiseman. Whoever it is, trade one of those guys for 2 genuinely good role players, specifically 3-and-D guys off of the bench. I'm sure there is some team out there that would take a swing on the youth on one of those guys and give you some good role players who ultimately aren't going to mean that much to them in the long term. Obviously, it's going to have to be like a bad team that you do this with, but I'm sure there's a trade out there that exists, and they also have all their first round picks. Essentially, you're going to need to fill out this bench and quick. That will save the defense quite a bit, and then you can argue that the three-point shooting will come around, especially in Clay and Jordan Poole's case. So if you make that trade, get 2 solid bench players, Dante DiVincenzo comes back and he's fine, Jordan Poole turns his season around, suddenly the bench unit's better, and because the bench unit's better, the defense is better, and those are 2 pillars that are back. Now you got 3 out of 4, then you just hope the shooting turns around. It's definitely very well possible, but I think until a move like that is made, and the Warriors have been very reluctant to trade any of their young players, until a move like that is made, then there are going to be problems in Golden State. But yeah, that is it. Shout out to Rudy for editing this video, and goodbye.